try to learn a little bit from the holy Rebbe Yitzchak ben Sarsashar me Barditchev, Zechusi Ageline of Solomon, and the holy. So we are, this Shabbos, in addition to Torah reading, we also read the book of Ecclesiastes. And I actually went through the whole, half of the book of Ecclesiastes, and was looking for, because this Sefaria is wonderful. They cite, where their citations would be, tying together Marmakomos. So we have, so looking under Hasidus, and I didn't see until Ecclesiastes 7:12 that they quoted the Kedushas Levi, or that the Kedushas Levi quoted the Koheles. So in Ecclesiastes 7 verse 12 it says, Ki b'tzel ha-chochma b'tzel ha-kosef, that in the shadow of wisdom is in the shadow of silver, of money. And the superiority of the knowledge of wisdom gives life to its owner. So let's look. The Kedushas Levi says, it's in Parshas Vayera, so it's in Genesis. It says, V'zeh hu ha'inyan v'zarach misar l'mo'avia. In Deuteronomy 33, which we just read, or actually, no, we will be reading. So it's actually connected to the Torah reading of V'zos HaBrocha. It says that from Seir there shined rays to the people, that to awaken the people. Deuteronomy 33:2. So that's we've read it already. All right. Also on Shabbos Mincha, Hinilchol Maven on Monday morning also, that everyone who is understanding Yiksha Haloi Kvar Cholku Eisev Im Yaakov. Everyone understands. They're asking the question. Everyone understands. It asks this difficulty. We already know that Esau had a disagreement with Jacob. Koidim Haleda, even before they were born, Beizei Lamas, concerning the two worlds. So one, Esau took his portion in this world, and Jacob took his portion in the afterlife. And Cain, if that's the case, how could it be the Jewish people, the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, have any blessings, any influence, anything that they receive at all in this world? If you're saying that's a reward for the commandments, we know that the reward for piously observing God's commandments does not exist in the world. It's all in the afterlife. So what's the concept? Adam Yisrael tzarech avod abari b'dveikus, b'slavus and nefesh ma'od. Every Jew has to worship the Creator with an intense connection and tremendous enthusiasm in the depths of his soul. Chol eis v'raga, at every moment, every second. Just like God's providence is at every moment, so too our connection to God has to be constant. God doesn't leave us without any divine providence. Chalila, God forbid. God forbid, God will not leave us without any divine providence. Afilu rega echad, even for 1 second, even for 1 moment. V'zeu rachmanas Hashem yisbarach. This is the mercy the divine mercy, the compassion of God. Shemar Eloi Lefamim La'adam Shemashgiach Benasnei Shefa Rav. Sometimes it appears that God's divine providence is demonstrated through the abundant blessings, material blessings that God bestows on the person. The Einzu Schar Mitzvah. But this is not a reward for our piety, for our observance of the commandments. Rather, the purpose of this is to make it possible to continue the worship, right? If we don't have food, if we don't have shelter, if we don't have prosperity, the purpose of this prosperity is not in and of itself, and it's not the reward for us, but it's rather what makes it possible for us to do what we're supposed to do. And also it gives us more freedom to what we're supposed to do. If we use our resources in the right way, God will bless us with more resources. You think of it this way: if at work they give you an air conditioner and a comfortable chair at your desk and a high-speed internet, that's not the reward for your work. The reward for your work is the paycheck that comes every 2 weeks, right? But all of those things are so you do your job better. Same thing, you serve a congregation, they give you a house to stay at, and they pay the bills in the house and so forth. That's not the payment for the work, but rather that's to make it possible for you to do your job. You know, if you live far away, you need to keep Shabbos. You need to come to the synagogue on the Sabbath and the holidays. You need a house to stay at, and so that's not the payment for the work. And additionally, if you use your resources wisely, you have more ability to use those resources, right? So, for example, if you let's think of a dog. If you have a dog who behaves itself and doesn't bite anybody and stays in the property, you don't need to put the dog on a leash, right? But if the dog is a vicious dog that's running around and biting people, so you keep that dog on a very tough chain, on a short chain. Same idea. So if we use our resources well, we'll have more freedom, and then the more possibility to use those resources for something positive. And if we squander the resources, so God will want to protect us. He might, God forbid, have to limit the resources, but he doesn't want to limit the resources. God wants to give us everything, so we can use those through wisdom, and to invest into wisdom and to invest in the good things. So if God blesses us with money and we give charity with that money, God will bless us perhaps with more money, we hope. We take the money and we invest it in a mitzvah. We spend money on an esrog or lulav, a sukkah. Now it's the yontiv, and food for the holiday and things like that. And we enjoy the holiday in a wise way, and so forth. Zel b'zach, the same thing. We also, and again, that's not the reward for the mitzvah. That is because we use the resources wisely, and we demonstrate that we use the resources wisely. God will give us more resources to use wisely. He sees it's a good investment, so to speak. So that's why God blesses us, so we can serve him in the future. So therefore, even in the simplest way, we see that God has divine providence upon him. Eino manicho regably hashgacha. God doesn't leave us off even one moment without divine providence. V'zeu kavanas v'zarach misor lamo. That is what it means that God shines from Seir to his people, meaning this portion that belonged to Soyer Acharani shined, even though it belonged to him, since he squandered his resources and didn't use them in the proper way. So God will bless the Israelites with those resources, because the Israelites, if we use them in the path of wisdom and in devotion to the Torah and following Jewish law, then you have more. Same thing. You say barachas on the food and use that energy. God will see that this is where he wants this food to go. This is where he wants the food and the drink to go. Someone who says barachas, someone who recites benedictions, someone who does mitzvahs, that's who's going to be blessed. And sometimes not because certain people can do more without that. That also happens. There are tzaddikim who had poverty and were able to serve God through their poverty also. You know, Reb Nachman Breslover points out, Sukkos, whose yahrzeit is tonight, tomorrow, he says the tzaddikim in these days are ashirim, they're wealthy. In the old days they weren't. And why? Because it says anyone who worships God in poverty will be blessed to worship God in wealth. It says in Pirkei Avos, anyone who fulfills the Torah in poverty, in the end will fulfill the Torah in wealth. And so they were reincarnated into this generation, or even his generation 200 years ago, more than that now, for the same concept. And that's what it means is shining out. Hainu kushya anal. This answers the previous question. But teretz, what's the answer? Again, in Parshas V'zos HaBrocha, Mimino Eish Das Lamo. In his right hand is a fiery religion to his people. It's a loimer, it means to say, Mashenoisen lahem chelik mesoer hu mimino. That the Israelites received, the Seirites portion, is from the right hand. What does it mean? That represents the archetype Machmas Ahavas Hashem Yisbarach. That the love of the blessed Lord, that's called God's right hand, is his love. So Eish Das Lamo, that's what it means, a fiery law, a fiery religion to his people. Hainu Shislayev Libam Al Mashanos Lamo. That their heart should be enthusiastic, on fire for that which God gave to them. This is why Abraham called his son Isaac. Because Abraham was so happy that his son Isaac came about. So Isaac, whose name means laughter, his archetype was that of fear, of piety, of the introversion, as opposed to Abraham's extroversion, which represents the archetype of fear and awe of God. Ki bo ba'avor simcha, since Isaac came because of joy, the simcha shorsha eish, and the archetypical root of joy is fire. The eish yira, and fire represents fear and piety, awe. V'hine b'chinas simcha. So therefore, and we know the Kedushas Levi, having the Sefer Kedushas Levi in the house is segula against having damaging fires in the house. There should be no fires in any Jewish home or any good person's home. So b'chinas simcha. So this attribute, this archetype of joy, ain't medios. There's no constant.
In 2 miles, take exit 52 for US 11 toward I-76, Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Joy is not constant. Joy is something that's received from this. Shagoram hasimcha. Something has to cause the joy. V'achokma shalah hitamidas. But wisdom is a constancy. V'zeu achokma techayev aleha. And that's what we have in Koheles. That's why we're learning this. That wisdom gives life to its master, to its owner. In Ecclesiastes 7:12, v'ini machshava oisius v'simcha, because there's joy in the letters, and the letters of thought come to joy. Machshava hirishayna, the thought comes first with medius, and it's constant. Sha'adam ba la'ayin, when a person goes from ani, I, to his ego and switches around the letters to ayin, then he realizes he's nothing. Then he can attach himself to the source of life. He can attach himself to God when he brings down his own ego. And then a life force enters into him because he's conquered his ego. Then he comes to the world of the trade. And he lifts everything up to the Lord of all. Because everything is connected to the blessed Lord. Who lives and endures forever, through all eternity and through all the multiverses, and he fills all worlds and surrounds all worlds.
In a quarter mile, take exit 52 for US 11 toward I-76 Pennsylvania Turnpike.
This is a secret what it says in Leviticus. That when you have an animal that...
Take exit 52.
Animal is designated for sacrifice, right? And you trade that animal for another sacrifice, it does not remove...
In a quarter mile, keep right. Follow signs for Carlisle Barracks.
Meaning, you trade... Which way are we going? Oh, right. You trade the animal...
Keep right.
For an animal that was not designated as a sacrifice, and you trade them. You're not supposed to do that. And if you do that, then they both have to be offered as sacrifices. They're both holy. So that's what it says. This one and its trade are holy. Leviticus 27:10. This is what the sages teach, blessed memory, in the Jerusalem Talmud. And the first tractate, the tractate Brachos, tractate on benedictions, is chapter 2, Mishnah 4.
Continue for 1 mile.
It says like this: Tisha B'Av Melech Mashiach. The saddest day of the year is the 9th of Av, right? It's when the temple was destroyed.
The Waffle House has found its new host.
And even though that's the saddest day on the Jewish calendars, the 9th of Av, Noilad Mashiach, the Messiah, is born on Tisha B'Av in the summertime, so not on Christmas, lest anyone think Chas v'Shalom, God forbid. But so anyway, Ki Az Hu Oilam Atamura, because that's when the world was traded off. That's when there was a switch off. Az Yachal Yosef Geula. And only because of the destruction can there be a redemption.
In a quarter mile, slight right onto the I-76 West ramp.
So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. And we'll see you all later. Alright, I guess we could turn this off already. Alright. Thank you. Alright, how did I